Now, every day I get DMs and messages, emails and comments on how to start sketching cars. What do you do? Which car should you start sketching? And that's exactly what we're going to tackle in today's video. And fortunately for us, Tesla has made car design very, very simple to start and get going with. And I think you know what I'm talking about, the Tesla Cybertruck. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to take the Tesla Cybertruck, gonna show you 3 simple ways to sketch it and draw it with very, very basic tools. So let's jump in and let's get started.
Now, as always, I think you should be used to this by now, but you are probably going to hear a lot of noise in the background, and that comes from these guys down here. But these are kittens that are getting adopted on... Hey, Rosie. Hi. Okay. Forget about it then. They are getting adopted in 2 days, so the background noise will be silent for a while until we get new kittens. Just a heads up.
Okay, so here we are. Let's get started with this Tesla Cybertruck. I'm gonna walk you through the different steps, the different tools that you're going to be using, which is going to be very easy because the tools are very, very simple. So what I want you to do to start with is to look around where you're sitting right now, and the first pen that you see, or the first pencil, the first marker that you see, just pick that up and do the same with paper. So if you have an envelope laying somewhere, or some old print paper, maybe even have some fancy marker paper, whatever you have laying around, just pick that up and take the pen, take the paper right here. So that's the sketch. This is marker paper that I used for this specific video, but you don't need that. So just take those 2 tools, very simple tools, and let's get started with sketching. First of all, step number 1 is to get the basic geometries down of the Cybertruck. So what you want to do is create a triangle with the top of the top part, the top of the triangle being more tilted towards the front, because we're sketching this in a side view, and the Cybertruck isn't, you know, a proper pyramid like this. It's tilted like that, if that makes sense. Not sure if it does, but just keep the top point of the pyramid further to the front, because you want to have about 1/3 of the way, and then you have the top, and then the bed is going to be 2/3 of the way. So it just have the top point 1/3 of the way in on this triangle or pyramid, if that makes sense. Now from there on, we have the baseline of the pyramid, and what we want to do now is to pretty much add a rectangle below the pyramid that we have on top. And this rectangle is going to have a little bit of a tilted angle, because the pyramid from the start, we have the shoulder line of the Cybertruck being going up a little bit towards the end point, as you can see in this sketch here, for example. So just add a rectangle below the pyramid, and you have the basic shape of a Cybertruck. It's really, really that simple to sketch this truck. It's amazing. So if you want to start sketching trucks and cars, you know, there probably isn't a better car to start sketching with right now than the Cybertruck. Well, let me just have a sip of coffee here. The kitten, as I said, they're going nuts down there. I'm sure you can hear them. And when you have these 2 basic geometries, you have the rectangle and you have the pyramid on top, what you want to do now is add the wheels. So the wheelbase, you can kind of figure that out by looking at photos from the Cybertruck. The wheelbase is the distance between the wheels, so how far away are they going to be, and if you put them too narrow to each other, it's going to look like a cartoon truck, and we don't want that. So rather have them further apart than you think, and it will look more like a real truck. But keep in mind that the overhang in the rear is slightly longer than the overhang in the front. The overhang in the front is pretty much, I think you could say it's about half actually than the overhang in the rear. So just keep the overhang in the front to a minimum, because we're going to add these fenders around the wheels, and the front fender doesn't have, it kind of starts in the curvature of the front fender. It's going to be a lot kind of difficult to explain, but the first part of the front fender in the front is a lot smaller than it is on the rear axle, which you have a complete wrap around like this with all the surfaces The front is missing that first surface. I hope that makes sense. And that's how you sketch a Tesla Cybertruck. It's really, really that simple. From here, you can do whatever you want. You have the basic shape down. You should have it down by now. And what you want to do now is start to just have fun and not take it too seriously and explore a bit more. Maybe throw some markers on there. Maybe you want to add some line weight. Line weight is the technique that you use when you're using just a big pen, for example. And if you don't have any markers, you might want to add some depth to it or some contrast to the sketch, and you do that by adding line weight, and that's what I'm doing right here in this sketch. And where you want to add this weight to the lines. So what specific lines do you want to have be thicker, and what lines do you want to have thinner? That all comes down to the light source. So where is the light? If you think about a car, if you think about a car sketch or whatever product you're sketching, everything has a light source. If it doesn't have a light source, it's going to be a completely 100% dark room and you're not going to see anything. So if you can see the product, it does have a light source. And this light source is up to you to decide where it comes from. So in my case, I have usually the light source coming from a slight tilted top view or something like that. And that of course creates a shadow for the truck on the ground, and you can see that I added that with this cool gray 0.5 marker, I think this is. And I'm also going to add, I think I'm going to go up to cool gray 3 or 5, I can't really remember, but this is extracurricular activity that I'm doing here now. You don't have to use markers if you don't want to. But if you have markers, of course it gets a lot easier to add shading and line weight and all this stuff. All these things. And once you're done with the marker for the sketch, you always want to go back with the big pen, because this is another question that I get a lot, and I totally understand it because it didn't make sense to me either when I first started sketching with alcohol-based markers, and that is when you start to sketch with markers on top of big pens, it's going to make a mess. It's really as simple as that. Everything is going to smear, and the big lines are not going to be as sharp as you want them to be. So what I like to do is before I go in with the markers, I want to have just light big lines or pen lines on the paper, and I don't want to go in too heavy with the line weight until I'm done with the markers, and that is for obvious reasons. The thicker the lines and the more ink you have on the paper, the more it's going to smear and the more it's going to make a mess when you go over it with markers. Second, I try to, whenever I have a big line and I know that I'm going to go over it with a marker, I try to kind of go over it in a very gentle way and not put too much pressure on the marker. Because if I were to go over these lines and just, press the marker down, it's definitely going to make a lot more mess, a bigger mess than if I just take it a little bit slow, a little easy. And if I make some smear, it's definitely going to smear in some points, but to me, that kind of adds to the sketch. It adds to the sketchiness, and when a sketch is imperfect, it just shows a little bit of the artistic side from whoever sketched it. Because if you sketch something 100% perfect, there isn't any personality in there, and I don't really like that. So smearing the pen lines is not really a big deal to me, and I would encourage you to not think about that too much. Just have fun with the markers. And also another question that I kind of want to go through all the basic questions that I get when it comes to sketching cars and sketching products and sketching with pen and paper and markers. So one other question that I get is, what kind of tools should I use? Do you recommend this brand? Do you recommend this brand, and what's the comparison? Do you think these are more valuable, or do you think this is worth the price? And all of these questions that, to me, it just doesn't make sense to start asking those questions until you reach a point where you feel that the difference from marker to marker actually gives you an additional benefit to your sketch. And reaching that level is going to take years to get to that level. I'm not even there yet. I mean, I can sketch, it doesn't matter what kind of marker I pick up. I can pick up whatever as long as they're alcohol based, they will still get the job done and they will still do what I need them to do. It's very simple. So if you have these kind of questions that what kind of tools I should use, or are these even going to be any good markers, or is it even worth getting started with these markers, the answer is always going to be yes. I think in some cases, and this is just me speculating here, but I think in some cases, some of you are asking yourself those questions and it kind of becomes an excuse to not sketch. Am I right? I don't know, you know yourself if I'm right or wrong, but that's just my kind of hint here, because sometimes sometimes I just get the feeling that people are way overthinking the importance of what kind of a brand of a marker you're using, because it really doesn't matter unless you have a very, very specific style that the difference in markers are going to, you know, affect your style. But I seriously don't know of anybody that is that specific with their marker sketches that they prefer one brand over the other. Just use whatever markers you have. Buy 3 or 4, maybe a cool gray pack of whatever brands you can find, and just get started and just have fun with it. That is my advice, and that is what I'm always going to say when people ask what kind of tools should I use. I just say, from my own personal experience, I just pick up whatever marker and paper that's close to me, and I just get started with sketching. So that's about it. That's the Cybertruck sketch. I hope you enjoyed this kind of different video, going back to the roots of analog sketching. I'm the Sketch Monkey, and if you have any questions about industrial design sketching like this, or if you like these kind of videos and want to see more of them, just let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, as always, give it a like and a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoyed these kind of videos. Take care. I'm gonna try and clean up after the kittens. They made a mess down there, which is pretty much standard every day, but it's all good. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.